how are the conversations? You have some good and enlightening conversations going on this time? Yeah? Yeah? Somebody, there you go. So, I'd like to introduce our second Ed Talk speaker, Danielle Reynolds from Inspire School of Arts and Sciences here in Chico, where she teaches math. And with that, Danielle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello. So before I started teaching, I thought that good teaching meant an organized classroom. Desks in perfect rows, right? And perfectly organized shelves. And on those shelves are perfectly organized binders. And in those binders are amazing lesson plans. These lesson plans have the standards that are rewritten into student-friendly language called learning targets. And then in the margins of those lesson plans, you have detailed reflections about little tweaks you're going to make for next year. I also thought it meant that you put fun posters on your wall. This poster is no longer on my wall, but this one still is. And the reason you put these posters on your wall is because it makes you human. And it makes kids like you. Because I read somewhere that students learn from people they like. And then at some point that first year, I looked around and I realized I teach high school math. And not a lot of people like high school math. And some of us do, but not a lot. And those posters, they were not going to keep my kids focused while I spent 80 minutes on my block schedule convincing them that arithmetic sequences are really important and very interesting. And those binders, they weren't happening. I'm embarrassed to admit I didn't know the standards, let alone could I rewrite them into student-friendly language called learning targets and write them on my board every day. Wasn't going to happen. And most importantly, I was having this hard time answering this question, are they getting it? I could answer that question when they took the test, at which point it was too late, and I discovered that a lot of them were not getting it. So there is one book I attempted to read that first year, Conscious Classroom Management by Rick Smith. And there's a line in that book that I love. Being a new teacher is like trying to fly a plane while building it. Right? Yeah. Is that not the analogy for your first year teaching? I'm going to argue it's the analogy for your 5th year, your 7th year, your 15th year, your 27th year. The difference being, 15 years in, you're updating the upholstery on the seats. 27 years, maybe you're fixing a broken wing. Or some of us, maybe 7 years in, rebuild our airplanes. So here I was, a first-year teacher, building this airplane, holding my wings on with dental floss, right? And I was really troubled that I couldn't answer this question, are they getting it? And then do something about that for my kids before we got to the test. And because I couldn't answer that question, I felt like I had no business flying. Then I remembered this F word from the credential program. It's formative assessment. And I sat in these classrooms, not far from where I stand today, with some incredible instructors who are probably out there somewhere right now. And I really thought I understood what formative assessment was when they taught it to me. Randomization, check. Quizzing, got it. Then I got into my classroom and I realized, nope, no idea. And this was going to take a lot of work to understand what formative assessment looked like in my instruction. So fortunately, at the school that I was working at and still am, we do a in-house professional development model where we sit around in a circle, we eat snacks, we meet on a regular basis, we sing Kumbaya. Just kidding, we don't sing Kumbaya. But we do have a common goal, and that's to work on our professional development together. Because we're better together, right? Right? Yeah. At that time, the theme or the focus for our professional development was AFL, Assessment for Learning as taught by Dylan Willem. And what we would do at these meetings is we would read the material and the strategies that Dylan Willem lays out for effective formative assessment. We would watch videos of Dylan Willem talking about formative assessment and what it looks like. We'd watch videos of teachers trying it in their classrooms. Then we'd break off into observation groups, and we'd get into each other's classrooms, and we'd try stuff out. We have forums, we ask each other questions, we have debrief meetings. It's a model that we tweak every year, and it's working for us. And what this did for me as a new teacher, and continues to do for me today, is it gives me time. It gives me time to talk to other teachers. It gives me time to read this material about effective teaching and really digest it, because I'm talking to other teachers about it. And it gives me time of other teachers to observe me in my class, which I'm not going to talk about today, but it also gives me time to observe other teachers in their classroom. And that first year, I got to see some really well-built airplanes. I got to watch some really effective teachers doing great things with their students, and they were updating their upholstery and fixing broken wings. And that modeled for me that to be an effective teacher and have an impact on my kids, I had to be really honest about my struggles and work with other teachers. I've discovered I'm not the only person that values this time with teachers. I'm sure a lot of you would agree that that is incredibly valuable. The last couple years, I've had this amazing opportunity to coordinate a grant called Engage Ed, and my colleague Becky Brown and I, if you're interested in this, please email her, not me, bbrown@chicousd.org. We coordinated a professional development grant for 40 teachers K through 12 from 8 different schools in Chico and the surrounding area. And long story short, we held these workshops, we gave these surveys, and in those surveys we asked, what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong? And consistently, what we got back that we were doing right was giving teachers time. Time to talk to each other, time to discuss their struggles, their needs, and collaborate. You know, it's amazing what can be done when you give teachers 20 minutes to just sit and talk about their practice. It's inspiring what happens in half a day. Just give teachers half a day and the trust that they're gonna work on their profession. It's incredible. So going back to the Kumbaya snack circles, we had this theme for our professional development AFL, but it's not about the theme. Any school or district can choose a theme. Google Classrooms, you know, behavioral improvement plans, whatever. It's not about the theme, it's about the structure, because that structure is what allows teachers to talk to each other and get really great stuff out of it. So for example, on this topic of time, I had this issue that I was teaching Algebra 2 students. I had to teach them logarithms, simplifying rational expressions, how to use a graphing calculator, what an asymptote is. Try teaching asymptotes to high school kids. And I also had to teach them how to get out their book, put the rulers back, stop touching that. And I couldn't get it all done in my block schedule. But because of this professional development, I had been talking to other teachers, and I stumbled into this woman's classroom. She was teaching chemistry at Inspire, and she was trying something called a flipped classroom. She'd make these videos, post them on her website. This is her current YouTube channel. And not only were the students completely engaged in high school chemistry, it's a really hard class, right? It's a really hard class. They loved this class. But she had some of the highest scores in the district. So I thought I'd try it. It was not easy. I made a website. I tried quizzing my kids. I made a YouTube channel. I started making videos. There were a lot of problems with it, but I stuck with it, and I had people to talk to. I had people to go to and talk about my struggles. And now, a few years later, I have over 50 videos. I've spoken at conferences. I've mentored other teachers. I've worked with student teachers. And most importantly, I reached kids I wasn't reaching before in my class. So I was really lucky. I fell into this type of professional development. It's all I've ever known. But I've heard that not all forms of professional development are equal. teachermemes.com. I have a friend who worked at a school, and she told me the story about the administrators who paid thousands of dollars to make sure, or to pay an outside expert to come in and make sure that every teacher had a learning target written on their board every day. And that was it. That was the goal. I read an article about an auditorium full of teachers, and they roll in this giant screen, and two talking heads come up, and they talk to them about increasing student interaction in their classroom. I've heard about really well-intentioned administrators adopting behavioral improvement plans, but they didn't consult the teachers at the school to see if it would be effective. They didn't consult the teachers to see if it was something they would use, but they asked teachers to lead up the committees to implement it. So it's teacher-led, right? Yeah. I hear about how people furthest from the classroom are making the biggest decisions that impact our instruction. When shouldn't it be us? Yes. Yes. Amen. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I'm not going to try and make the following point on my own because, like a really good teacher, I found someone to make it, and I'm going to borrow it. It's from the Teaching Gap, and it says that improving something as complex and culturally embedded as teaching requires the efforts of all players, students, parents, and policymakers. But teachers must be the primary driving force behind change. They are best positioned to understand the problems that students face and generate possible solutions. So what can we do? What can we do to improve professional development for teachers? The first thing is that you can't do this on your own. You have to start a network. If you want to change this at your school or your district, you have to find positive, passionate, like-minded teachers and start a network. Go out there and do your research on what effective professional development looks like for teachers. Go look at other models. You've seen one here today, right? Go look at other models that work and beg, borrow, and steal to make that happen at your site. And then you make a case to your administration. This does not cost more money. It's just a matter of redistributing time and money to make this happen. And finally, if I may be so bold, don't let anyone say to you, this could never happen at our school. Because it can and it has to, and you have a great impact on your colleagues. And this is the part of the talk where I get to say, research suggests. Research suggests that teachers next to students are the most powerful influence on their colleagues. The work of teacher leaders can trump the efforts of policymakers and administrators to change practice. The outcome of this type of professional development is that when we are empowered to direct our own PD, we own it. Engaged, focused, and positive teachers have tremendous impact on student achievement, and isn't that why we're here? So when our planes need updates and fixes, aren't we the ones best equipped to look around and say what needs fixing? And if we do it together, aren't we better together? Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause for Danielle and that really exciting. Thank you. All right, we're going to take 5 quick